Welcome, welcome, welcome. Greetings. We are now live on Facebook for a Visionary Parenting online series where we are sowing the seeds of success within us and within our children, transforming a generation to believe that they can be, do, and have anything that they desire. Now, this series where we'll be having powerful conversations with a variety of parenting experts, thought leaders, and parents who are taking the journey of empowering themselves and their families so that they can grow, learn, and live abundant, successful lives as defined by them. And for today's episode, we have the wonderful Garry Talbert, who is joining us to tell us all about his experiences. Now, he has had over 45 years of experience working with families and children in so many capacities that it's just even hard to begin the list. There is so many. So I'm just going to hand over to Garry and say, tell us, in all the capacities that you have worked with families and children, just tell us, how have you managed to do this for 45 years? Welcome, Garry, welcome.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm glad to be with you here today and with everyone else. Yeah, it's been a long experience. Obviously, it was interesting when I graduated high school. I had always planned on being a doctor because that's what my parents said I was going to be. And I actually went to work with kids at a camp the summer after my senior year in high school. And I came home loving kids. I said, I had so much fun. And so I changed everything in my mind. I was going to become a teacher. And of course, I came to Newberry College here in Newberry, South Carolina, which is where I am right now, and got my education degree. I played football here and was a cheerleader here. But I literally started teaching at an elementary school my sophomore year in college. I had a college professor that even got me started over there. And so teaching was a very much of a mission for me. I got out and I worked did my student teaching, worked for a year right down the road in Chapin, South Carolina, where my daughter now lives, as a matter of fact, about 20 miles from here. But anyway, and then I had a very close friend of mine that hired me to come to Richmond, Virginia to work in a children's home as the education coordinator, as the liaison between the children's home and the public schools where the kids went to school. During my time there, we went from a custodial agency, which they were phasing out at that time, becoming more to these agencies becoming more treatment oriented.
What's a custodial agency?
Okay, custodial agencies were basically children's homes that were developed coming out of World War II because of fathers being, lost in the war, and then coming home and children not even having parents. And so these agencies were developed to have for places for kids to go. I know when I was growing up, oh gosh, I just lost the name. There was a children's home in Columbia, South Carolina, which I'm right outside of here. And I was the Loman home is what it was called. And that's what the kids were there, didn't have families that they could go to and parents. And so we ultimately recognized that we needed a change, and we became more of a treatment program. At this agency in Richmond, Virginia, I became a group leader for teenage girls. And we did what is known as positive peer culture, an actual program where we did group meetings with teenage girls. We also had groups of boys. I specifically worked with the girls, and they lived in a housing there, and had two live-in women that I also worked with them. And ultimately, these young men and women would go through the program, and develop skills, and then go home and to where, because they had successfully completed a program and were doing very well. One of the things we discovered, and one of my closest friends even now, that I ultimately started working with again, by the way, John Sullivan, we realized that when these kids went home, they still, the families hadn't been worked with. So it was that kind of thing. The kids made big changes and everything, but they went back into the environment, that the community, and it was very hard for them to maintain the progress.
So can I just clarify? So were these children troubled children, difficult children, having issues in normal schools or stuff like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they had gotten in trouble and been referred to us by the parents, but DJJ, DSS, Department of Social Services, Department of Juvenile Justice, different organizations would refer them to us. So then at that time, I also decided to come back home. And so I moved back to South Carolina, and with my wife and I moved back, and I went back to teaching school. And this is where I got involved in teaching school. And during the time, really learned, just really got involved with kids. I actually did some coaching. I did football and basketball coaching for middle school. And one of the things I learned was that kids that tended to be struggling some, the more I reached out and connected with parents with them, the better the progress the children made, in particularly at that middle school level. And just so happened that I happened to find a mentor, and they're within the district, that hired me for a specific program of working with really academically smart kids, gifted kids that had lots of intelligence. And a lot of them were struggling, particularly in middle school. And because things had always been easy, and when they got to middle school, things got a little tougher. And so I happened to find my number one mentor, Dr. Sylvia Rim, who I worked with. I in fact still work with Sylvia some now. She's mostly retired. I don't know that she'll ever retire. But anyway, I got with her and kind of met her. And at about the same time was when my daughter also started elementary school. And that's a whole nother story of how things happened with us and all that I will tell in another time frame. But really working with kids and developed a program where we identified kids coming out of elementary school, and I taught them for 2 years in social studies with the idea. I taught them self-esteem. I taught them relaxation skills and kinds of things. I actually became a trained challenge course leader, putting kids up in wires and trees and building self-confidence there. I loved it. Still love that today. In fact, I had Jessie up in the trees, my daughter, at 6 years old, and had my grandson up at 3 years old on the tree. So yeah, I got really involved with the kids that way. I ended up moving to a different district. At that time, it was just ready for a change, to go somewhere else and do something different, and got involved with a program where the field study was 3 days in the mountains doing the challenge course things. So that was right up my alley, and working with kids. And I still have kids that contact me from my days of teaching and reaching out. And it was, in fact, there was a plaque back here of a couple of kids that came to school when we went back to visit this middle school I worked for, came back to see if I was still there. And we got a chance to talk and got some comments from some other students back there. So it was just a lot of fun and watching these kids grow. I ended up retiring from teaching and kind of knocked around, tried to start a business that just didn't work out. And so decided I wanted to get back working with kids, and actually went back to John Sullivan, who I mentioned a moment ago, and went to work for family-centered treatment, and which is the model that we were using. And I did that for about 12, 13 years. In fact, just left that program a year ago this month. And where it was an intensive in-home program where I literally went into the homes with the families and worked with our model family-centered treatment with these families, because there were situations where things weren't going right between the parents and their children. And with the idea that hopefully we would bring some stability, develop better relationships so that they would stay together. And of course, right now, working and developing my program here to work with kids. So that's the real piece for me. And then the other side to it is that I really enjoy the outdoors. During the time that Jesse was growing up, literally canoeing, camping, wilderness things, and got very involved with wolf studies. And during those kids that I worked with when I was teaching school with them, they literally got to call me the wolf dude. We did some really fun things. They would always bring me wolf stuff. Like for one Christmas, I remember a bunch of kids came together and bought me these wolf slippers that you put on your feet. They had these wolf claws on them. It was so much fun. So I even developed a whole unit around that. So teaching kids about nature, about, the environment and the importance of that, and how everything's important in the environment. The other real piece that I do that keeps me involved with kids also is my photography. I'm very close to, as I mentioned, Newberry College, where I'm an alum. That's my alma mater. And actually, Jessie, my daughter, graduated from there. I do sports photography for the college and just love it. But the real piece for me is not only the pictures that I take, that I'm taking pictures for parents and people that want, the history of their children playing, but it's my connection with the kids playing and the coaches. It's fun to see them around campus and see them even around town. This is a little small community, so we see each other around town, and they'll come up and talk to me. And just as an example, last year, Halloween fell where they were having practice early one morning for football, and I literally put on a wolf mask and went over to the field and came out on the field. Of course, they knew who it was because I had my camera with me, and they laughed. They got the biggest kick. And the other night, I saw a couple of the kids and players that were playing, and they said, "Well, we're waiting on the wolf mask. It's about time for that to come out, and it's getting close to Halloween." So I've done a lot of things. Again, kids are my passion. Young people are my passion, and helping them find their way and what they want to accomplish in their lives is very important to me.
That is brilliant. So from the sounds of it, you've done a lot of work with challenged children that had difficulty, parents that had difficulty with their kids. You mentioned there that you did a lot of work with them, but often when they went back, it was, so you had to bring the parents in and working on board. So it's important that everybody was all together, working to the same goal in that sense. And kind of like, so was it like not rehabilitation, but just kind of empowering these children to believe in themselves and that they are able of doing something productive in society. Is that right?
Yes, for sure. That was the whole thing. And to help the parents recognize, and know that these kids, one of the things, of course, that was happening a lot. In fact, excuse me, one of the things that happened, I ended up working strictly with the Department of Juvenile Justice. I was taking all of their cases that were referred to our agency to work with them because of the relationships I had built with the Department of the probation officers, court counselors, we call them in North Carolina. where I was working. And because ultimately I'm also trying to help everybody get on the same page. We want everybody together, even the court counselors, teachers, parents, the children. Everybody needs, the more we're on the same page together and we've got that mission that we're looking to try and accomplish, then it's easier for us all to get there together. Because it's not just about the kid itself, it's about all of us. That ultimately the benefit is going to be that kid. And then also parents being happy and the families being successful.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Which kind of brings me into what the headline of this program today was about. You mentioned we talk about the number one parenting rule that we should know. So where has this rule come from, and what is that number one rule that we should know?
Yes, I'll go back to Sylvia Rim, my mentor, and can't say enough about her on a number of levels of how important she is to me. But she created 12 laws for, parenting with purpose kind of things. All right. And the number one on her list, I don't know that she necessarily classified it number one. It was just the first one on the list. But for me, in all of the work that I've done, when I look at it, that law, that's the one that I was just talking about. And it's law number one. It says children are more likely to be successful if their parents join together to give the same clear and positive message about expectations. So it's that united front. It's parents being on the same page together. One of the things that we really discovered when I was doing, the intensive in-home work, many times what would happen, I would come in, and of course, when you go in, sit down and you start talking and say, so what do you think is the biggest concern you have as a family? And of course, the parents would immediately point to the child. That's our problem. I said, okay, I got, okay, because he's in trouble or she's in trouble and with the department has been to court or something, they're with Department of Juvenile Justice. So over time, because we were in there a minimum of twice a week, we had to be in there a minimum of twice a week for at least 2 hours each time with the family. And in most cases, I was in there, particularly at the beginning, 3 and 4 times a week. Because the more I understood the dynamics of the family, the more I could also help them see what was going on. But a lot of times what would happen is you've got mom who's got one way of reacting to the child and dad's got a different way. And so they're not on the same page together, right? And the more we can get them to, because what I really wanted them to do is sit down and then talk about, yeah, mom, I've got this, and dad's okay. There's nothing wrong with either one of those. But what's happening is that you or mom, you're saying and doing this with the child, your child, and dad, you're saying and doing this. So the child is getting miscommunications because dad wants this, mom wants this, and I'm not sure where I stand because we're not together on the same page. So the idea was that I really got with the parents and I sit down and figure out how they could present the same message and both of them follow through with that message to their child.
Right. So definitely about having that united front. And we do speak, we may not use those words, but we do recognize that, as teachers, we need to have our parents on the same page, that we're working together, we're all on creating the same thing so that what gets done in school doesn't get done at home or vice versa.
Yes.
That we are on that same page and working together to bring that child forward and help them blossom and grow. And that's so important because it's like fighting upstream, driving upstream when you're on 2 different pages, when things are just constantly being pulled apart. So
and what happened, and see what even happens, but what happens with that is if mom is got one idea and dad's on a different thing, the children are smart, folks. these children out there, they're not dummies, and they learn and by our actions and the things we do. And ultimately what they learn is, if I want this, I go to mom. And if I want this, I go to dad. So ultimately what kids will do to you is they'll divide and conquer you.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, the older they get, when they get in those teenage years and those things like that, boy, it gets even bigger.
Yeah.
You know, so much of a bigger issue. So the sooner we're on that same page, and which big thing I talk to parents about is at least once a week, sit down, have a parent meeting time where, you know, but you're alone, the two of you are alone, and you're there talking about, okay, these are the things going on. These are the things we're seeing, whether it be school, whether it be at home, you know, whatever it is. And so how do we as a united front want to present this to our son or our daughter, what we expect of them, whether it's chores, whether it's, you know, technology. I know there's a lot going on today with kids getting stuck on phones and on computers and those kinds of things. And how do we, you know, kind of minimize some of that, get them outdoors play, getting them physically doing things, but being on the same page and then presenting it, you know, this is not what I want as your dad. This is what we are doing as parents here and what we have expectations for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So once you go through that first law, you then introduce what are the other laws that are, give us a couple examples.
Okay, well, and a couple of the other laws that I'm very familiar with, that I really tend to focus on, is children develop self-confidence and resilience through struggle, is one of the ones that I'm very familiar with. And I go back to that one, again, when I was teaching school. What was happening, as I mentioned earlier, these kids, when in elementary school, things were real easy. Everything just came easy. When they came to middle school and got into some, particularly foreign languages, which they'd never had before, all right? They got into a foreign language they had never had to study. They didn't know how to study. So they were complaining about the teacher. When they come to me, they were complaining about the teacher teaching the foreign language. I said, well, wait a minute, let's look at this. Is the French class you're taking, is it hard for you to do? Yeah, I just don't get it. Okay, so that's a whole different piece here. So helping them recognize, hey, it's okay. You're not supposed to know everything. That's why school, that's why we have schools, okay? And that's why you're growing. You're going to learn and grow through time. And so so that was really the thing. And one of the things we really want to see and talk about is with them is, and particularly with parents, is we don't want to save kids from struggle. We want to be there to support them. We don't want them to fall flat on their faces and not be successful, but we don't want to save them either. We don't want to just come in and protect them from things that they can, you know, like I told the kids, you know, when you hit that wall, when things are a struggle, what do you do? And that's part of even the challenge ropes course stuff, because we had a wall we had to get the whole group over kind of thing. And so I use that as an analogy with them is, okay, so remember when we did the wall, you know, you had to create an ideas as a team to get over that wall. So when you hit that wall, what do? You don't give up. Do you turn to a friend that can help you, that understands math? You know, I mean, that would be me. Math, I can't add and subtract. Okay, so helping them recognize that struggle is okay. Trying to figure out how to get through that struggle is what's important. And be there to support them. Don't just, you know, nah, you'll figure it out. Okay, so what's the struggle here? What have you tried? Now, what can you go do? I had one student, I mentioned earlier that students come back to me. I had one student that I met with, this has been a while ago, but we happened to see one another. I was talking with her and she said, the one thing that we got so frustrated with you as a teacher was you never answered a question when we came to you. And I looked
Always
at her.
send them to go and find it out for themselves.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, and I kind of caught me off guard when she said it, you know, and I went like, huh? She says, when we came to you, and we've all talked about this, Mr. Talbert, you know, when we came to you and we asked a question, there was always out of your mouth a question back at us. What have you done? What's the problem? How can you go find out the answer yourself? And we laughed so hard about that. But the idea is, okay, well, here's what you've done. That didn't work. So what do we do now? Mm-hmm. And if they ever got really stuck, then I'd come in and, you know, guide them in a direction to go. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So a question has just come in saying, so what would you do if you've got your parents have got two different parenting views? How do you get them onto the same page?
Well, and this is where we had to really sit down together. And that, as I said, that's not an easy task to do. And this is where you have to sit down. With them, I would need to do, you know, some one-on-one, because the idea that what I would do would be to, okay, have the mom write her things, what's important as a parent, all right, and dad do the same things, all right, from their position on parenting, and then have them sit down together and talk about those things, all right. Kind of like a pros and cons list almost, but even looking at these, what do I believe about parenting? What's my point here? So I and then the idea is that they come together and find some way to meet in the middle, and then be able to present that middle point of view to the child. All right.
That's brilliant.
So it's and it's not easy. I really don't want to, you know, say that that's an easy thing, because it is not. I recognize that. I think we all, again, I go back to myself. I look at my daughter even now, all right, who I have a grandson, and thank goodness that she and her husband are really tend to be on the same page. But, you know, they knock heads sometimes about things, you know, and all parents do. I know that I did in raising Jesse. We, you know, knocked heads, and we had to sit down and figure it out. And I think, thank goodness, I had Sylvia. You know, I had my mentor that I could reach out to and just talk with, and she would give me things to think about. And Jesse's mom and I would sit down, Pam and I would sit down and talk about it and try to figure it out.
That's awesome. I'm just going to introduce my co-host right now, Beata, and get her to jump on screen for me for a moment. I'm having a little issue here, and I need to just go and turn some fans on. I'm melting on the spot, so I'm going to ask her to just take over for me for a moment, and I'll be right back. So bear with me. Beata, just pick it up and keep on running there, girl.
Hey, Melanie. I'm seeing that my background is back to front, so I'm actually, anyway, we'll run with it. Here we are.
Yes.
Hey, very nice to see you. Lovely to meet you.
Yes. How are you doing?
In this space, I'm doing great.
Yes.
I've been listening to everything you've been saying, and of course, I've heard a lot of it before, but having it said in this concise way, the way that you present it is just amazing. I love, you know, the thing that really strikes me is that you're able to come into these families, because I've worked with families, and often when the parents are divided, it is the trickiest thing. So I wondered, you know, I wanted to ask the question, how do you get them on the same page? And I love the way that you said you just find that common ground, that little seed in the middle.
Yes, and it's really that thing, you know. One of the things that I really stress here is this doesn't happen like that. Okay, it's not an overnight piece. I mean, these, you know, these adults, these you know, parents, they developed these things about them, you know, over their lifetime. All right, and in many cases, their parenting is based on how they were parented. And chances are the mom wasn't parented like dad was parented. All right. Every family is so different. That's the one thing that I truly know in my work with family-centered treatment and really in teaching. I never went into a meeting with families having some kind of predetermined idea about what needed to be done with this family. It was about sitting down and learning from them. Tell me about your family. What does this look like? What are the struggles? Yes, this is what, your son is struggling with, these kinds of things, or they're struggling. All right.
Yeah.
So help. And then also, so when he or she is struggling with those, mom, how do you react? What is your reaction to those? Dad, how do you react? What do you do? And when they're verbalizing it, they all of a sudden start to realize, wow, I'm kind of saying one thing and doing one thing. Dad's saying and doing a different thing. And so there's a lot of, even though they mean well, these parents are not trying to do this on purpose by any means. They're trying to do the best they can, and they don't realize that it's just a matter of coming together and sitting down and creating, a plan of what we're going to do. As the kids get older, they start testing limits. We know that the older they get, I know that I can tell you right now, my daughter Jessie was the light of my life. She turned 16. Dad bought her a car. She started dating. Oh my gosh. And this monster showed up in my home. Okay. So we really had, she just started challenging everything that we were doing, and had to, sit back and she and I we had to work through those things and figure those things out. And it was not easy time at all. Within a year's time, it was very interesting. One day, Jessie and I were driving back. I think I had actually been taking her down to, because she didn't have her driver's license at that time, because I had taken that from her. But we were getting clothes and things, preparing for the start of school. And as we're driving back out to the home, she literally apologized and said, Dad, I just really am disappointed in our relationship. So she didn't, it wasn't just accepting, just totally, it was like she was concerned about, and she recognized how our relationship had gone a different way than what it had been. And so we sat down and talked about it and created a plan. Okay, this is what, as your dad, I need you safe, and because ultimately what happened, she'd been in a car accident also during that time. So we worked all that out. And then from there, I'm not saying that it was all hunky-dory from there, but at least we had common ground and things that we had in place and went on. And as I say, to this day, she is still such a close, I hate to say friend, but at her age, she's 39 years old. So yeah, she's a little, I'm still her dad, and she's still my child, and we know that, but there's a different relationship. I respect her as a parent herself. So those things are important that we do that.
I love that. There were two things that really stood out for me in that, Garry, and that the first one is that you came into the family and it's like you practice what you preach. You come in and you're present. So you don't have any expectations of how it's going to be. You just come in and see what's in front of me right now. And the other one was that you don't look back. So yes, each parent had a different way of being parented, but the way you described it is as though you just go, okay, from here, from this present moment right now, how do we move forward?
Yes.
Right? What's the best way
Yes.
for us to move forward, and let's bring out what the differences are,
Yes.
which is amazing.
For sure. And that's really the thing. We don't, we only kind of explore that past to help us get to how we got to this point, this chaos that we're in. And therefore, now what is it that we need to do? And figure that out. And it does. It takes time. Everybody's sitting down. You bring the child in and you sit down. As I say, we had family meetings and everybody getting on the same page and everybody coming into agreements. And it wasn't always fun in those meetings. All right. I mean, I've been in situations where, and this goes back to where we were first getting started. You get a mom and a daughter ganging up on dad in one of these early meetings in the family, and dad gets angry, gets up and walks out, So and these are all these dynamics, but it's the idea of them trying to learn. Well, these are the dynamics. This is what's happening anyway. So by me being in the family and being part of that family and being part of that environment, we can say, okay, so what happened there? What caused these kinds of things? What can we do better so everybody's able to stay together and find answers, solve the problem for y'all? What do you all want? That's not what y'all want. What is it that you want? And get them to really start talking about, this is what we want our family to look like. Okay. What do we do? What do you do to get there? And
starting with that end goal in mind, starting with what is it that we want to get out of it?
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
And Garry, there's another question I want to ask you, and this is it. The children that you've worked with, and of course your own daughter, they then have those skills to carry to their own families, right? So have you seen them grow up? Have you seen how because I know that Melanie's all about parenting the next generation so that it spreads through the years. So I'd love for you to speak to that.
Yes, it's been, again, interesting because I'm commented that I still have some of my students that reach out to me. It's real funny. I've got a number of students that, in fact, one lady that happened to be in my very first class that I ever taught, found me on Facebook back. It's been a good year ago now. And next thing I know, they're probably like 5 or 6 of those kids. They're not kids now, obviously. That would have been 1975. Okay. So these are definitely not kids anymore. They're definitely adults, but they reach out and they share things on Facebook and talk about their kids, and they share pictures of their kids. And you can see the kinds of things that they are, doing, and recognizing their kids and recognizing the success of their children and things they're doing, and even recognizing their things that they accomplished, as parent in business and kinds of things. I have several people that other students, former students that have reached out, and we talk about their parents. I had one in particular, in fact, the one I mentioned that confronted me about not ever answering a question. She and I are actually very close, and I got with her, been around her family and how things, and her kids are, in fact, she just had a kid graduate from high school. So things are just really successful. And then I can sit back and watch Jessie, and watch her with my grandson, and watch Jody, my son-in-law. And they are so good because they are very active and involved with Bryson. All right. That was something, see, Jessie and I were always doing things. We were always, when I went on trips, I didn't go by myself. I took Jessie with me. We spent practically the month of August for 10 years up in the upper Midwest, going into wolf country, exploring the habitat and the environment, and looking at wolves and talking with researchers. We literally went to Yellowstone this summer. They reintroduced the wolf back into Yellowstone in 1995. So always doing things with Jessie. though I can't remember things that I didn't do with her. It was all, we were always doing things together. And that's what Jesse and Jody now do. They, they're big into four-wheeling. They love getting outside, physical, and doing four-wheeling, going to these courses where they get to go through mud and everything. And they all do it, all three of them. They have their own vehicles and everybody participates. And of course, they're trying to hook me into that as well. And I haven't done that yet, because I'm a high performance driving instructor also, which I got Jesse and Jody involved in that. So they know I like to drive, but I also had a shoulder replaced about a year ago, and making sure it's ready before they start jerking me around on a four-wheeler.
What I'm hearing in that is, just to summarize that a little bit, is two things. So if parents are struggling, or if there's a bit of disharmony in the family, the two things I've heard and got out of what you're saying is, the first one is have a family conversation.
Yes.
And perhaps bring somebody in. So maybe there's three. Family conversation, bring an outside person, and having a mentor. You mentioned your mentor,
Yes.
Sylvia.
Oh, absolutely.
And having an outsider there just to be that mediator, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the term. I love the term mediate. It's, I didn't tell them what to do. It was guiding them, helping them discover what they wanted. Now, how are you going to do it? So it is, yes, it is a mediator.
It's, again, your teaching style, isn't it? Ask the questions, get the answers from the inside.
Yes.
Because that is well, we all have the answers inside us, and to have somebody there that can bring them out.
Yes.
Is amazing.
Yes, I see, and I agree with that statement also. It's in there because we all want it. We want the best for ourselves, for our mates, and for our families and our children. So it's just a matter of finding it. How do we come together and do it together? And it's teamwork. It's that teamwork, which goes back to my love for sports, so I can bring that analogy in as well. So for sure.
Definitely. It's teamwork, and coming back to what's in the heart, rather than those emotional reactions and those beliefs of how you were raised, how it should be, just coming back to what it is you want. That's beautiful.
Yes. And you know what? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to, in the summary, so having that family conversation, bringing somebody else in. And the third one that I got from what you were saying was doing things with your children. So that idea of, education and learning outside of the school, and doing things and seeing how amazing life is, whatever the kids are into or whatever the parents into, and having that connection outside of the parent-child relationship or teacher-child relationship, where kids can explore themselves.
Yes, and creating that bond and doing things together, is so important. In fact, that's I'm getting ready to add that as Law 13, by the way, to this. Yeah. Yes, I mean,
because it sounds like you brought that into your teaching too, right? Doing things you didn't teach in the classroom.
No. It was, it was all about, joining with those kids and helping them discover the things. I was not that teacher. I mean, there were certain things you have, you're required to teach, and that's part of the struggle I have with teaching, is trying to sit down and teach kids all these facts, kinds of things. I wanted them to discover things for themselves. And that was really, I was very fortunate in the programs that I worked in and I did, and the supervisors, principals and supervisors I had, I was allowed to do that. And so, yes, it's a matter of doing things together. When I was teaching school, it wasn't about me, the teacher, and them, the kids. We were all in that together. It was, it was a time that was important, because the kids taught me, as I'm telling you, much more than I taught them. That's the one thing I also very much aware of, is that these families, these parents, and in particular kids, over my lifetime, kids have taught me more than any other people out there. No doubt about it.
And what a different relationship when you're learning from each other and there's this flow, and they feel that they're being respected because they're being a teacher as well, rather than having this.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So
excuse me, Gary, I'm just going to close my door because it started to rain very heavily here in Australia.
Okay.
And all of a sudden my sound is
oh goodness.
beautiful.
All right.
And Gary, I'd love to, I know that I've seen your 12 laws.
Yes.
But there's 12 of them, and it's very difficult to remember. Where can I access them? Where can I find them? Is there a place where where you have them posted? Is there a way that I could contact you, or that other people that are watching this can contact you?
Yes, I am actually I can be found on Facebook at Garry Talbert, right? GARRY TALBERT. Don't forget the 2 R's. My parents did that to me with Gary. Of course, I did it to Jessie. Her name is JESSI without an E. So we keep doing those fun things to our kids. Yeah. But but that you can find me there from my Facebook page. And then I have a parent group that I'm in the process of creating, where we will start developing and discussing, bringing together and looking at those 12 laws together. That's really what the plan is to get there and do that.
I love it. And what's the name of your group, Garry?
All right, the group is, you know what? I've got to look that up.
Well, look, what I'll do is once we're off here, I'll pop it in the chat so that anyone that watches this in the replay or who wants to come back will have access to that, because they're amazing laws, and they're so simple.
Yes.
You know, when you
if anybody my email, by the way, is teamquestorg@AOL.com. And so if anybody reaches out to me and contacts me either through Facebook and wants to more information, or reaches to me and with my email, I will be glad to send them those 12 laws, because that's ultimately where we're going to get started in the parent group that I'm in the process of developing. Great.
And that's great, because of course it's one thing to read the laws.
Yes.
And it's another thing to apply them, right? It's one thing to know them.
For sure. Yes.
So you'll be going through how to apply the laws, which is, or what they actually mean, maybe digging in deeper into what does it mean? You know, when you say united front, that can mean a lot of different things. And the way that you've explained it has been just enlightening.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it. So
thank you so much, Garry. And I'm sure I will see you again. I know that we're working together on another project. So that will be, so that will be wonderful to explore and watch it evolve. But all the best in this journey, because you've had so many journeys that have been interwoven and have got you to where you are now, and that wealth of experience and that amazing wide-reaching bank of experience that's culminated in what you're sharing now.
Thank you. Yes, and
it's priceless.
Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our work together, as you were mentioning, also, for sure. All right.
Thank you, Garry.
Thank you.